one of the things that comes to mind is just, where my background is, I used to run a digital marketing agency with Louis and Mike. I think you've before at a Heavy Chef event, and we had a team of close to 100 people, and this is between 2003 to 2016. And when we were developing, we developed a bunch of apps and platforms and projects for a number of different clients. And the team that was required in order to do such a thing was immense. And the talent we needed more than one designer. We needed a front-end developer. We needed a back-end developer. We needed a tech spec person. We needed a BI. We needed all these individuals, which now the sands beneath our feet are shifting rapidly. And so, you come from an economics background, right? So essentially, I think, from your perspective, what seems to be the case is that you have this bird's eye view on the situation at large, and you have a perspective that's quite unique, almost as an interpreter, is what we find in the recipe. You interpret all the various trends and the various skills that are available, and you foster those. And so my question is, in terms of over the past, I think the first time that we met was in 2018 or 2019, where you spoke in an event, and you were fresh and bright-eyed. You had none of the cynicism as an entrepreneur that you probably have now. But what has changed since then? In terms of, in your view, the last time I built an app with my team was in 2016. And, from 2018, when roughly when you started to now, what do you think have been the biggest seismic shifts that in the development space and in terms of building apps that you've seen?
The technology has changed immensely. So I think around 2015, 16, 17, there was obviously a really big boom in South Africa, specifically around, tech startups. And really the conversations then were, what stack should we build this platform in? The MERN stack was gaining momentum. It was actually, should I build it in MERN, or should it be built on Angular or something like that? Those were the conversations that we were having at that time. I think even WordPress was almost at its peak around there as well. So for non-technical people, those were the options that we'd use. Wix as well, which was, I guess, the introduction then of no-code or low-code solutions. So I think over the years or since then, we've, especially as entrepreneurs or non-technical people, we've then shifted from having the idea to going straight to a developer, but rather having the idea, prototyping ourselves, because of all these low-code, no-code tools that we were able to wireframe, we're able to build something really quickly on a Wix or a Bubble, and then maybe even get our first users, and then basically take it to market. I think that has been one of the biggest shifts. So the barrier to entry has essentially gone from I need to pay someone 50,000 Rand or more to let me just spend a Saturday on this, which is really incredible, I guess, for any entrepreneur. I think now, as we're evolving, I guess, in the space, there's of course the advent of AI now, where even developers themselves are using AI to basically whip out certain features. I think there's this term, it's called vibe coding, where you're basically just using AI to code your solutions, and then you check it out yourself. It's like, okay, does it actually make sense? So the technology is rapidly shifting. There's tools that come that keep being produced in the space that just make it essentially easier for you to launch your first prototype, and hopefully it will get to a point where you can actually build scalable solutions. So that's where we're really looking at, I guess, in the industry.
Sure, it's exciting time. We're feeling it in terms of where we are at Heavy Chef. I mean, we've mentioned it on our mailers and that sort of thing, but the reality is, you know, for us, we're still a small business as a platform. Heavy Chef, you know, as a team, we have a small team, and I think that you know, when we consider our options, we've used no code and low code to set up our own platform, and we've just made the decision between the leadership and I that we're going to start rebuild our platform, which is essentially a learning management system, but it's also a community platform. So it's on one side, it's a database of content, on the other side, it's a database of people. And so essentially we're building the kind of middleware that connects the content with the people and the people individuals with each other. That's, you know, the basic version of what we want to do. But I remember when I was involved with the team, to be able to build that, you know, say 10 years ago, it was an extraordinarily significant and expensive project, you know, and the cost, it's still a big deal, but, you know, nowadays, like we could, and mean also like you, I'm probably less technical than you by a long, you know, by order of magnitude, but you feel like we can do this, you know, and so there's this sense of excitement in the air that I think small businesses are starting to feel by the possibility of being able to create something, you know, that they envisage using these new solutions. So I see. Sorry, yeah, you have something you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I just want to, echo what you're saying. I mean, I think small businesses should really feel empowered, like now more than ever. Like, I mean, I guess they've been hearing that the entry to building a tech startup is low, or has been low for a while, but like now more than ever, like genuinely, you can have a full-fledged solution, at least your first model or your first version of it, fully done by yourself. And then, you know, as you grow, you get users. Then you're like, oh, actually, I want to add these features, as you were saying. So, yeah.
So I see Louis has asked the question, what is the biggest mistake a small business can make when do you have a view on that? I mean, I'm sure there's a ton of mistakes, but do you have something you've seen happen a few times?
There's a lot, I think, but the biggest one is, you know, coming from the standpoint that you are a startup, you have limited time, limited resources. So when I see startups, you know, essentially, maybe even if they have a bit of savings as the founder, or they raise a bit of capital, you know, somehow from friends, maybe family, they spend all of that money on, I guess, building a solution that they haven't even tested in the market, or an idea that they haven't even spoken to customers about. So maybe you're sitting in your room and you figure out, hey, there's a solution I want to put in front of, you know, maybe you're building a solution for accountants. And, you know, your limited understanding of what accountants need, that's what you use to build the solution. And then you pay a developer, you know, a huge amounts of money, and then there's scope creep in the solution. Then you're adding more features, you're doing all of this, and you're a couple of $100,000 into the solution, but at no point have you actually spoken to any accountant. And then you put it in front of accountants. Do they like it? Turns out not. Maybe half what you bought they actually don't have any use for. So I see that happen quite often, and I'd say it's probably the biggest issue or mistake.
Because you just have got to me personally, Mvelo, because that's something that I think even after all these years of running businesses and being an entrepreneur, and even in some cases mentoring younger entrepreneurs, I still fall into that. And the thing is, it's such a strange human nature quirk that we fall into, that we get excited, we get so excited about the idea. And it's there's this amazing term, I think it was Ernest Hemingway, when he was talking about economy and writing, and he talks about killing your darlings. And it's like when you create protagonists or stories and you fall in love with them, and you kill them if they're not absolutely essential. If they don't contribute to the story, then you need to do away with them. And I think there's a similar analogy to the ideas and the way we think of ideas. And certainly, I know this for myself, is that I come up with an idea, and almost immediately it becomes additive. And I start to go, hey, what if we can do this? What if, without actually speaking to the people that I'm serving? So I think it's that case of, there's on the one side this feeling of being a little bit afraid, maybe somebody won't like your idea. And the other side of it is equally as powerful, is that you're in love with this idea, and it fills you with passion because it's a creative energy, it's a powerful energy. So I want to then talk about, in terms of, okay, so you've spoken about speaking to your audience and the audience members. What about the first steps? Let's just say, we come up with an idea, and we talk about the this concept that comes out of the ether or wherever great ideas come from. And I'm a small business owner, and now I'm getting excited about this. It's an idea for an app. What is the first step that I should take in terms of getting started with this process?
I mean, honestly, the first one I'd say is just write it down, right? So, you have this idea, think about it and write it down. Essentially, these are all the features that I want. These are the users. Like, imagine now you have it in your hand, who would you then approach afterwards? So think of it, conceptualize it like fully in your mind or on paper now, like that. Once you've done that, you need to look at the product that you then want to, put in front of those people. And, in that process, it's actually a lot more difficult than it actually sounds. So you write down what is the exact product and what are the features I'm going to be putting in front of them. Not all the bells and whistles that you need in the product for it to, wow people, but rather just enough for you to be able to deliver on, fixing their problem or deliver some sort of solution that makes their lives easier. So, we call this the MVP, or the minimal viable product. So can they log in? Can they create a profile? And then can they start doing whatever they need to do on the platform? I think once you start thinking, there needs to be a crypto wallet connected to it, there needs to be this and that, that's when you start getting a bit fancy with your solution. And once you've done that, that's when I would essentially go into wireframing. And by wireframing, guys, like it all sounds so very fancy, but you can just write it down on a piece of paper as well. This is the screen that they're going to log in. This is the screen where they will, update their information, etc. At that point is probably where I would, speak to a couple of friends or whoever my intended users are. So I haven't even spoken to a developer. I haven't even, started building anything. Just ask them, hey, here's my idea. I've written it down. I've drawn something that you can actually visually see. What do you think about it? Is this something that you'd use? So that's probably where I would start.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think I want to just quickly jump on, and I see another question in the chat. Before we get to the question, I just want to jump on one of the points that you mentioned is MVP. Can you expand upon this concept of MVP? We talk about a lot in startup circles. I mean, like, when is an MVP, like, how M is an MVP? How and we look at like what is the definition of it? Because I think, is an MVP like something that you just draw on a napkin, or MVP something you can use? I think the V is then quite important in that.
Yes.
MVP, right?
Yeah. So I was about to say, so the M is really important. So for everyone, so it's a minimal viable product. By minimal, it's like, it just needs to be enough, but not too much. But viable is probably the operative word here, where it needs to still make sense. It needs to work. It needs to solve whatever pain point that you're looking to solve. So when you come up with your solution, and you say, I'm solving, I say, unemployment in South Africa. Your minimal viable product needs to be leading to doing that. So bringing that as an outcome in some shape or form. I mean, that's obviously a very big problem to solve. So maybe let's think about something else. I'm, let's say let's take a dating app, for example. People are not. Maybe the problem is people are not meeting each other as much as possible. Or people are very lonely. They need to meet partners. The minimum viable product there would be, one way of connecting the people. It doesn't even have to be an app. It could be a mailing list where you, have people's names, and you basically saying, on such and such date, there's an event that's happening in the waterfront. And all single people, can you please come to this event and you'll meet someone? So that essentially would be your MVP. And that's even before you've actually built anything. So you then make the experience for everybody a lot easier after that, where they can basically sign up somewhere. They can create a profile and say, hey, I'm whatever age, I live wherever, these are my interests, I have a dog. So and then whoever's actually interested in that, they can see this profile, and then you start building essentially the features from that first version where you've allowed, or you've solved the problem that you had set out to actually address. So yeah, that's
I like that. Yeah. No, that's super focused. I think the key question then, if I'm interpreting what you're saying, that the key question that I need to ask as an entrepreneur is specifically, what is the problem that I'm solving? And to be able to be as specific as possible. So it's actually something that we see quite a bit at Mvelo Hlophe and within the kind of startup circles, that when one asks an entrepreneur, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? It becomes this long, rambling, complicated and not necessarily obvious answer. And I think if we can't do that, then it becomes pretty difficult to solve for that, right? So you don't have a problem. If you're not clear about the problem, you can't be clear about the solution.
Yeah.
So Louis asked the question that, I mean, as an agency owner, this used to plague us back in the day, but how much does it cost? How much does this stuff cost? And I think, obviously, well, how long is a piece of string? But I mean, like we have, and this interview is going to be edited for entrepreneurs specifically and shared with our audience. So I think that this question is going to come up a lot. Is how much should we put aside to create an MVP when starting with this idea that's understanding what the problem is, and we want to solve it in the simplest possible way?
Okay. So yeah, this is never an easy question to answer, because it depends on a lot of things, right? It's who's building it. There's developers that charge by the hour, there's developers that charge by the feature, and then there's experienced developers and ones that are less experienced. I think if you were to work with, let's say, a mid-level developer, maybe they know a bit more than somebody that just started their career, but they don't know so much that they can work with microservices. They can, might not even be that confident in working with cloud or whatever. So I'd say anything between, after proving your initial stage, so the concept where maybe you've done your own MVP and your own tests yourself, now you're building your first product. It should ideally be anything between 50,000 Rand. I think anything more than 150,000 Rand, you're now starting to build a really big solution. So that's the range that I would play in. Once you feel as if you have solved, or you've got a product that can solve whatever problem that you're looking to solve. Now you want to digitize everything. Now you want to have something where a lot of users can come onto it and have a really seamless experience. So yeah, about 50 to 150,000 Rand is a good place to start.
Yeah, that certainly tracks, and certainly some of the the projects that I've been involved in, and working with these no code, low code solutions, or at least applications, that it's more of a time-based thing than a resource thing. And that obviously reduces the cost quite radically if you're going to be involved in it as an entrepreneur. So with that in mind, Meg's got a question. Hi, Meg. Mvelo, do you recommend a low-code or no-code software? And I think, yeah, we all want to know this. Like, what do you recommend? I mean, no-code, low-code, you mentioned there's tons of them, but can you give us a little bit of a lay of the land in terms of some of the solutions that you're aware of?
Yeah. So I mean, the first low-code, no-code solution I used was Wix. So Wix is obviously drag and drop. To create a website, at least. I know some people are able to build a more complex solution. I think that's when you add a bit of code as well to a Wix template. Of course, there's WordPress, which has been around for a long time. But I think one that I would be a big advocate for, because during COVID, I actually built a platform using this, is Bubble. It's pretty intuitive to learn. I mean, there is a bit of a learning curve maybe for the first day and a half, to really understand where everything works, how you link everything. But it's a really good tool to basically build any solution. And I know the Bubble community, I'll actually just write it in the chat now quickly. The Bubble community is really growing. There's even certifications now as well. But literally anyone can learn, and you don't need any prior experience with development.
And that's specifically a Bubble is an app. You can basically create apps using Bubble, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's super exciting. The fact that we, as non-technical folk, can build an app from scratch using the software is mind-blowing to me. Consider back in the day, we used to charge corporates, the millions of rands over this period of years in order to get something that was relatively simple. Nowadays, just bringing together some microservices, the cost is of what it used to be. Yeah, so just watch out for hidden fees based on the number of user queries. Yeah, for sure. And I think that's thank you, Louis, and Meg, you commented on that as well. I think that's something that comes up a lot, is the kind of almost like this weighing up of the various benefits to the cost of things. And I mean, we have found that out in Mvelo with Heavy Chef, in that we use Kajabi, which is a off-the-shelf LMS. It's got a little bit of community functionality. It's got a little bit of it's got some API capabilities and whatnot. But the reality is that there are tons of hidden costs. You know? And there's also caps. The other thing that we noticed was, because this is a software that's built for a large number of small businesses with small communities, as soon as our community at Heavy Chef grew to a certain extent, it became unfeasible. And we're paying, I mean, I don't want to say it out loud now, but we're paying a fortune every month for Kajabi because we've reached our limit. And so every time we have to, and that, if I have to be honest, is one of the big reasons why we changed.
I mean, yeah, I think that is a very important comment that was put there by Louis, is that, there's tiers usually, and, they like to show you that, this is the free tier, this is the, small business tier and then contact us for corporates or whatever. So just be like, read, there's usually documentation that they hide behind it so that you know exactly. And it's not easy to obviously project how many users that you will get, but continue checking it, especially when you want to hit hundreds and thousands of users at some point. Yeah.
For sure, as we all do. I want to then know, in terms of, we'll be talking about scale and hundreds and thousands, there are hundreds of millions of apps and products out there that one can choose from now. There's absolutely, I guess there's a huge amount of excitement and opportunity with all of these low-code, no-code, free, shelf opportunities for us to build these things. But that also means that there's a lot of noise in the environment. So how do we rise above the noise? How does an entrepreneur, a small business owner, distinguish themselves, in amongst all of this noise?
I mean, do you mean by the solution that they themselves have built, or
how do we stand out in amongst all of this furore out there? How do we stand out as a small business?
I mean, the biggest thing, like, deliver on your promise, guys. If you're gonna say that my solution makes it 10 times easier for you to do X, Y, Z, like, you've actually just got to do that. And you'd be surprised how many apps or businesses claim to do something that they just don't. I know sometimes it'll be a marketing gimmick for whatever business, but if you consistently deliver on what your solution says will do, over time you will definitely come above. You'll beat companies with 10 times your marketing budget, 10 times the size of your business. I mean, we've seen it for ourselves as well. So I don't know, like, I don't want to go too deep on trying to dress that up more than that, but genuinely, sure, you just deliver on your promise.
Well, I think, that's a remarkably simple answer, and it has always been true, right? So whether it's 20 years ago or 100 years ago or today, delivering on your promise is basically the most important tenet of building a company or building a brand that there is. Even if you look at what a brand is a it's a message, contains a promise, and it lives and dies on whether or not you keep that promise. And so I think, we speak a lot about the brand building in Vishet. And I think with regards to that, we live in a era where things are so cheap and disposable that, there's this graveyard of app ideas out there that have been launched, some with, quite a lot of fanfare, and they just fizzle out and die, right? There was that amazing app which was creepy. I don't know if you recall, but it was the one where you could go in and listen on conversations. I can't remember the name of it now, but it was about 2 years ago, and every single person on the planet was just signing up for this thing, and it was like something party or something like that. But nonetheless, it sounded so amazing off the bat. But then, when I joined and I got my username and I started listening to conversations, and it just felt creepy, and so I think it's also important to understand that the problem that one's trying to solve is an actual problem. It's not a problem that you've invented in your head, like, hey, I want to listen on people's conversations,
I think I know the solution you're talking about. So I forgot the one that pioneered it, but Twitter created Twitter Spaces around it.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
But yeah, I think that's important to actually what you just said there, where some solutions or some app ideas and the rest of that, they're hot for a moment. I think we're in a very unique situation in Africa as a whole. Everyone that's on this call is that we've got like systemic problems as a continent, as a country, and the rest of that. So if you're solving one of those, you're going to be around for a very long time. You won't be 1 in 100 million apps that are out there. You'll be like 1 in in one or one and two within, whatever industry, and you'll definitely rise above. But that's, you solving like a genuine and real problem.
I want to ask you quite a specific question regarding progressive web apps. Can you first of all just define what that is? And then secondly, and related to that, is it possible to do that? I mean, when I say possible, like, is it something that one can pass? Like, do we need, and is it mandatory to create a native app? And maybe the first part of that question is progressive web app is native and what that means. And then secondly, can you discuss the benefits of each and whether or not you feel, in your opinion, that it's okay to have a PWA?
Yeah, I mean, so progressive web apps is basically, a web app. Let's say you jump onto Google and say heavychef.com. Whether you're using it on your phone or you're using it on a laptop or you're using it on a tablet, it changes orientation and fits on whatever design or whatever device or medium that it's being viewed on. I think what's really important about that is, not everyone has the same devices. Not everyone has the same kind of phone as well. So even from from an iPhone to a early version Android phone, it's very different specs for a phone. And if you can only view your application or what you've built on one specific kind of device, you lose out on everyone else that has something else. So it's progressive in the sense that it can change to fit whatever device or medium that it's viewed on. So it's extremely important. We live in Africa, once again, very low bandwidth. The devices that we usually buy, yes, everyone might have a smartphone now, but they're not all the same. If you've built something that's just for PC, you've really, more than half of the population can't even use your product. So it is very important to have that in mind when you're building. So you're not building something that can only be viewed on one device.
For sure. And I think with regards to the capabilities now, we do have the ability to push it out to native, right? And it's certainly not as difficult as it used to be. So, and you discuss that in the recipe, which I'm quite excited about. So the next question that I have then, I think, is maybe a tricky one, because it obviously varies on people's capabilities. But as a small business owner, I want to create an app. One of the biggest things that distinguishes, and we spoke about the millions of apps out there, but a distinction can be made around the UI, the user interface, and the actual aesthetics of it, right? Can you talk to the importance of employing a designer, like having an actual designer? If, like most small business owners, they don't necessarily have, finely tuned design skills, how important is it to find somebody these days who can, wield the design tools that are available to us? Or can we get away with, just using the kind of templates that are available to us through these new solutions?
Wow. So we could do a whole seminar just on this, right? So design is really important for multiple things. I mean, you obviously design for aesthetics, you design for the actual use. And I think I'd even just add, Fred, to say, yes, you do need a designer when you can afford one, but a designer with context as well. And I say that because, and I'll get back to the answer, but I say that because we've once, hired a designer to update some of our things. And I mean, they were based in Eastern Europe. And, they didn't understand that, people view any website with a very low data. It could be, maybe they buy a ticket or a data ticket for the day. And if your design is very heavy on bandwidth, half of their data is gone just for them to land on your page. So that's, for me, is then designing in context. So, just the importance of a designer is that the designer or the design that you have on your application or your mobile app or your web app is you can lead people to make certain decisions on it. So if you maybe, for example, and I'll use what we do as a context, we have what we call a call to action every now and then. So we give you a bit of information about what we do. We put a call to action. So a call to action is, do this or sign up, or we basically lead you to do something. And when you have a really good design or good design principles behind what you've actually put out there, you're able to make the user go on a path that you actually want them to go onto. So, once you are able to actually, break the bank to onboard a designer, even if it's, on contract, I would 100% advocate for it. Because sometimes your developer might not be that strong in design, but once they receive something that has been designed with some thought, with context, by a really good designer, they can then build it out for you.
I'm glad you said that. And I think the design components, I mean, one of our core values at Heavy Chef is, design. And when I say design, I think you mentioned that it's, you can design for aesthetics, but design is so much more than that. Design is looking at a problem and solving it visually. And it's such an important aspect to the experience of using an app in these days. And you can immediately see it. We're the most critical of our own product, and we can, it's with, the Kajabi and the hurdles that are put to our users on our own platform, which we are now solving for. And we have to, because as we grow, we're seeing this requirement, of poor design, or let me rephrase that, non-contextual design that you make. Because Kajabi doesn't have the context of the individual. Kajabi is now a platform for tens of thousands of small businesses, and we just happen to be one of them, with an audience of, tens of thousands. So it doesn't work, right?
Just as maybe a one way that people can think about, like, would you rather be, on, I guess, Heavy Chef's website or on, the Department of Home Affairs website? Like you just get a headache just seeing everything all in front of you like that. So it's that similar concept where put it in such a way where, whoever can consume your content easily, and it's actually useful for them.
That's such an amazing reference, because I was literally on that site recently, and it actually ruins my whole day. It's so bad that it puts me in a bad mood. That's the impact that bad design or a bad user experience can have on people, right? So I get, we need to come up with a term. We can call it the DHA principle or something like that. But it's relevant to small businesses, is that because, and Louis, my colleague on the call, refers to this often. Attention is the thing that we have, and if somebody gives you their attention, we have to treat it like gold. And so the adverse of that is by putting unnecessary hurdles and poor design experience in there, and I think that's really what we're up against. So we've got a few more minutes with you, Mvelo, and so I encourage anybody who has questions to ask. I see Meg, you have another one. Do you worry about functional design beyond aesthetics when writing an MVP? Amount of data required to use the app, or does that come after the validating the concept? So I guess that's the sort of detailed stuff that's like the next step. And I think that's a great question, Meg.
That's a fantastic question. So again, just to amount of data required. Yeah. So I'd say no, Don't spend too much time. So there's a part of web development or software that we call optimization. So optimization is basically taking everything that you built, the lines of code. Maybe you had like 100 lines of code to build your app, somehow, and then you basically start going through it to make it less heavy. So by less heavy, as it takes less bandwidth, or you're reducing the loading times. You see that there's lines of code that is just unnecessary there. You're then optimizing to make it move a lot quicker, use less data, and the rest of that. And when you're building your MVP, you need to obviously have it in mind, but it's not something that you should hyper focus on up until you've actually validated the concept and you've put the product out into the market.
Yeah, I think there's the challenge, and certainly, I mean, it's so interesting now because we're right in the thick of it. Well, not in the thick of it. The Heavy Chef team is just embarking on this journey and a new chapter of our platform in developing it. So we're currently doing the things that you're recommending. We're doing the wireframes. We're working towards an MVP. We're putting a small team together, and so the thing that's super obvious and evident for us is that as soon as you start asking the question, there are a million different things that come up, and it's like, what about the data that we can use, and how many users, and how do what happens? There's a spike, and I guess the point is, there is, I mean, this sounds almost so obvious, but one of the best books on this topic would be The Lean Startup Method by I think it's Eric Ries. And if anyone in the audience watching this has not read that and who's considering building anything, read that book. It is just absolute gold. It's kind of taking the scientific method and applying it to startups. So it essentially means learn by, or at least it conveys learn by doing. And I think that's the crucial thing around this, is that you do the first steps, you observe, you take the data from it, you look at how your users are engaging and interacting, and then you iterate accordingly. And that's as old as the hills. That's new, but it's so powerful. And I think that ability for us to do that with these tools, to do it in a cost-effective way, is just absolute gold. Are there any other questions from the audience? I've got a million questions, by the way, so I'm believe that we don't have more time. But if there are any other questions, then please do put it in there. I mean, I wanted to ask you, I'm going to sneak in one of my own questions. In terms of, if you were to, let's just say, Mvelo, you had this great idea, you identified a particularly African, contextual problem, and you have, you've identified a potential solution, right? Can we talk about the way you would do that? What would the team that you would pull together in order for you to execute on it efficiently, cost effectively, but essentially in a way that's going to really nail the product that you have in mind?
I mean, I need to obviously look at my first skill sets. What am I good at? I'd maybe look at things like business development. So I'd say, sales might be my forte. Then I would start to look at a team or build a team that complements, I guess, my own skill sets and what then I need to achieve as a founder or as an entrepreneur. I'd, build parameters around the number of people I want on the team. So I always believe that the optimal number of people is about 3. So yourself included. So it'll be me, it would be a technical person, so a developer. And then I would, a lot of people have their own, preferences for the third person, but I'd put a marketing person in there, someone that knows how to communicate.
I thought it was a designer for sure, but okay, all right. Yeah. I guess you talk about, and I think this is the key point, like, what are your skills? So, in terms of your own skill set, that's it needs to complement what you bring to the table.
Yeah.
And 3 seems to be the magic number in terms of what I've read and how many individuals that I've spoken to, as well as articles and I guess case studies from abroad. It feels like that 3 number is kind of like the golden number. So have a product manager, a tech person, and a UI UX designer person. Meg's got a question. Do you need a tech co-founder at early stage if you make use of low code, no code software? Another great question, Meg. You're providing us with some zingers here. So that's an eternal question. Is this tech co-founder? And if yes, then where does one find such a magical individual?
Yeah. I think
him or her to join your team.
Leaning on, I guess, the comment that you made about the previous question. So what I would do is when looking for a technical person, it would be more someone that's front end leaning for that design element. So yeah, that's how I'd go around that. But
Okay.
to answer your question, Meg, I'm a huge advocate for having a tech co-founder. I just believe that you probably won't always be using that low code, no code solution. There'll come a point where now you have a million users and it's all great, and you'll probably want to start considering having a more custom solution. So having that person who's been part of the entire journey to understand your solution, to understand the roadmap of what you want to build and what features and how the data structures and everything are going to sit and look like, as early on as possible. That's going to be really powerful for your business. So even if you do have a low code, no code solution, I would advocate for having a technical co-founder.
And I would concur with that. I think that's it's absolutely crucial, certainly in the experience that I've had in terms of businesses that I've worked with, projects that I've personally been involved in, certainly within the community ourselves. I've got 2 things. Mo, if you can please put the URL in the chat for the recipe so that people can get stuck into that. I have a sneaky last question. I've actually got a list of like 15 questions that I haven't gotten to, but I think you've actually you address a lot of them in the recipe itself. So it's great. I think which is so great about these conversations is that we can apply them to our own businesses. And I'm just going to be straight to the Mvelo. All the questions I've been asking have related to the stuff that we're talking about at Heavy Chefs. So thank you for your free time. You're welcome to bill us at a later stage when we hit our million users. But yeah, it is amazing just to have this opportunity to apply the practical nature of your input to our own businesses. The last question, because I see we've only got 2 minutes, and then I'm going to be kicked out of this room at Workshop 17. I wanted to talk about, and this is $1 million question, so you can plead the fifth if you want. This thing of with an app, it lives and dies on habits, right? If people are not habitually using the app, whether it's a monthly thing, whether it's a cyclical thing, whether it's a daily thing like Duolingo, or a topical thing like Scrum to push, or or whether it's a purely functional thing like a banking app. How do you think about habit? I mean, in terms of, have you noticed any kind of key hacks or things? I mean, is it about rewards? What are some of the things that really to habits? And I recently just read Hook by Nur Isle, another great book, by the way. I'll put it in the chat here. And he talks, it's be all end all in terms of having a successful app. So do you have any views on that or thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, we've gone down the rabbit hole in our industry around how to get people to basically come back and stay engaged and to bring the app as part of their everyday life. There's obviously things that are a lot easier to make habitual. So, chat, for example, WhatsApp. You're going to open WhatsApp a million times a day. right? But you might not necessarily open your banking app every day unless you have like R1,000,000 and you want to just stare at it. So
That's all the entrepreneurs there.
Yeah, so there's of course that understanding. So what you need to then try to understand is, given your industry and given the space that you operate in, what is the average number of minutes that people use on your, or should be using on your app? And you should obviously be trying to aim a bit higher. There's tools and things you can try, like gamification. I mean, Fred, you've already mentioned giving people rewards. I think Duolingo does it really, really great within the edtech spaces. You know, they give you streaks. If you do like one lesson a day, your streak continues for, you know, like every day. You basically logged in and learn something every day. Up until they start bullying you, but yeah, there's different things. But I think what I've seen work the most is probably things related to community. So if you can build your solution in such a way where I get to socialize, or I get to interact with other people, I get to share it with my friends and family and wherever, you're probably going to see the biggest usage, like you, as opposed to anyone else. You can try gamification, you can try rewards, but you know, that social element, as humans, we just long for it. So if you can add that to your app, great.
I think there's a saying, just and I want to leave everyone with this this saying that we have, and we talk a lot about it in Heavy Chef. You know, people come for the content and they stay for the community. And with that, I'm being kicked out of this room, so we need to call this. And yeah, Mvelo, I'm such a huge fan. So you have built such a beautiful business, and you are such a beautiful human. And yeah, thank you for your generosity. Thank you for your continual investment into our community and the support of entrepreneurs across the country and the continent. You know, we salute you, sir, and thank you for your recipe as well. You have dropped gold nuggets for us, and I really appreciate it, and we really appreciate it. And thanks everybody for joining. It's really great to see you guys, and we're on this new journey together. And keep a lookout for new updates from us. Thanks everybody. Take care. Cheers.